Hi everyone! I'm Bhumi,
And my name's Ria.
and today we are going to be practicing mindful reading.
Mindful reading is reading but slowed down. It is done by focusing on understanding the text with all distractions removed.
Mindful reading needs to be done slower, with a clear intention to understand and become one with the text, not the usual race to finish it that we generally are used to in regular reading.
Reading mindfully comes with a series of benefits, such as the reduction of stress, lower blood pressure levels, improved brain performance, increased intelligence, and allows for a deeper understanding of text.
People often rush by skimming through the book. However, we will be practicing mindful reading by slowing down and truly comprehending what the book is trying to say.
Today we are going to be reading The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins.
First, we will read out loud. Then, we will analyze the text and talk about how it made us feel.
Let's get started.
First, we're just going to be reading one chapter, and after each page, we will analyze what the text is trying to tell us. Let's get started. Part 1. The Tributes. When I wake up, the other side of the bed is cold. My fingers stretch out, seeking Prim's warmth, but finding only the rough canvas cover of the mattress. She must have had bad dreams and climbed in with our mother. Of course she did. This is the day of the reaping. I prop myself up on one elbow. There's enough light in the bedroom to see them. My little sister, Prim, curled up on her side, cocooned in my mother's body, their cheeks pressed together. In sleep, my mother looks younger, still worn but not so beaten down. Prim's face is as fresh as a raindrop, as lovely as the primrose for which she was named. My mother was very beautiful once, too, or so they tell me. Sitting at Prim's knees, guarding her, is the world's ugliest cat. Mashed in nose, half of one ear missing, eyes the color of rotting squash. Prim named him Buttercup, insisting that his muddy yellow coat matched the bright flower. He hates me, or at least distresses me. Even though it was years ago, I think he still remembers how I tried to drown him in the bucket while Prim brought him home. Scrawny kitten, belly swollen with worms, crawling with fleas. The last thing I needed was another mouth to feed. But Prim begged so hard, cried even, I had to let him stay. It turned out okay. My mother got rid of the vermin, and he's a born mouser. Even catches the occasional rat. Sometimes, when I clean a kill, I feed Buttercup the entrails. He has stopped hissing at me. What I believe this page was trying to tell us is information on the history of main character's sister and family, giving us a little bit of insight on her opinions towards them, specifically the cat, her mother, and Primrose, her sister.
I agree. She showed her opinions towards the cat very harshly. Entrails, no hissing. This is the closest we will ever come to love. I swing my legs off the bed and slide into my hunting boots, supple leather that has molded to my feet. I pull on trousers, a shirt, tuck in my long, dark braid up into a cap, and grab my forage bag. On the table, under a wooden bowl to protect it from hungry rats and cats alike, sits a perfect little goat cheese wrapped in basil leaves, Prim's gift to me on reaping day. I put the cheese carefully in my pocket as I slip outside. Our part of District 12, nicknamed the Seam, is usually crawling with coal miners heading out to their morning shift at this hour. Men and women with hunched shoulders, swollen knuckles, many who have long since stopped trying to scrub the coal dust out of their broken nails, the lines of their sunken faces. But today the black cinder streets are empty. Shutters on the squat gray houses are closed. The reaping isn't until 2. May as well sleep in if you can. Our house is almost at the edge of the Seam. I only have to pass a few gates to reach the scruffy field called the meadow. Separating the meadow from the woods, in fact enclosing all of District 12, is a high chain-link fence topped with barbed wire loops. In theory, it's supposed to be electrified 24 hours a day as a deterrent to the predators that live in the woods, packs of wild dogs, lone cougars, bears that used to threaten our streets. But since we are lucky to get 2 or 3 hours of electricity in the evenings, it is usually safe to touch.
I noticed that this page was telling us about how a little bit of it seems to have some foreshadowing information about the reaping, which seems to be an event that is significant in this chapter, and it also gives us a lot of insight on the housing situation of the main character, which is the Seam.
I agree. It also seems that the main character and Prim are very close. It also talks about how the Seam seems to be a very poor area.
Even so, I always take a moment to listen carefully for the hum that means the fence is live. Right now, it's as silent as stone. Concealed by a clump of bushes, I flatten out on my belly and slide under a 2-foot stretch that's been loose for years. There are several other weak spots in the fence, but this one's so close to home, I almost always enter the woods here. As soon as I'm in the trees, I retrieve a bow and a sheath of arrows from a hollow log. Electrified or not, the fence has been successful at keeping the flesh eaters out of District 12. Inside the woods, they roam freely, and there are added concerns like venomous snakes, rabid animals, and no real paths to follow. But there's also food if you know how to find it. My father knew, and he taught me some before he was blown to bits in a mine explosion. There's nothing even to bury. I was 11 then. 5 years later, I still wake up, screaming for him to run. Even though trespassing in the woods is illegal and poaching carries subversive penalties, more people would risk it if they had weapons. But most are not bold enough to venture out with just a knife. My bow is a rarity, crafted by my father along with a few others that I keep well hidden in the woods, carefully wrapped in waterproof covers. My father could have made good money selling them, but if the officials found out, he would have been publicly executed for inciting a rebellion. Most of the peacekeepers turn a blind eye to the few of us who hunt, because they're as hungry for fresh meat as anybody is. In fact, they're among our best customers, but the idea that someone might be arming the scene would have never been allowed. This page gave a lot of information about her father and how he died in a mine explosion, which might be a contributor to her backstory.
We also see how the main character is slightly rebellious as she is planning to sneak out of the scene. In the fall, a few brave souls sneak into the woods to harvest apples, but always in the sight of the meadow, always close enough to run back to safety of District 12 if trouble arises. District 12, where you can starve to death in safety, I mutter. Then I glance quickly over my shoulder. Even here in the middle of nowhere, you worry someone might overhear you. When I was younger, I scared my mother to death. The things I would blurt out about District 12, about the people who rule our country, Panem, from the far-off city called the capital. Eventually, I understood this would only lead us to more trouble, so I learned to hold my tongue and to turn my features into an indifferent mask so that no one could ever read my thoughts. Do my work quietly in school, make only polite small talk in the public market, discuss a little more than trades in the hob, which is the black market where I make most of my money. Even at home, where I am less pleasant, I avoid discussing my tricky topics, like the reaping, or food shortages, or the Hunger Games. Prim might begin to repeat my words, and then where would we be? In the woods waits the only person with whom I can be myself, Gail. I feel the muscles in my face relaxing, my pace quickening as I climb the hills to our place, a rocky ledge overlooking a valley. A thicket of berry bushes protects it from unwanted eyes. The sight of him waiting there brings on a smile. Gail says I never smile except in the woods.
I noticed that this page specifically talked about how she started to conceal her own feelings and thoughts due to, it seems, a dystopian society that she lives in.
I also noticed that Gail seemed to be the only person that she could trust herself to speak around.
Hey Catnip, says Gail. My real name is Katniss, but when I first told him, I'd barely whispered it, so he thought I'd said catnip. Then, when this crazy lynx started following me around the woods looking for handouts, it became his official nickname for me. I finally had to kill the lynx because he'd stared off game. I almost regretted it because he wasn't bad company, but I got a decent price for his pelt. Look what I shot. Gail holds up a loaf of bread with an arrow stuck in it, and I laugh. It's real bakery bread, not the flat, dense loaves we make from our grain rations. I take it in my hands, pull out the arrow, and hold the puncture in the crest to my nose, inhaling the fragrance that makes my mouth flood with saliva. Fine bread like this is for special occasions. Still warm, I say. He must have been at the bakery at the crack of dawn to trade for it. What did it cost you? Just a squirrel. Think the old man was feeling sentimental this morning, says Gail. Even wished me luck. Well, we all feel a little closer today, don't we? I say, not even bothering to roll my eyes. Prim left us a cheese. I pull it out. His expression brightens out the treat. Thank you, Prim. We'll have a real feast. Suddenly, he falls into a capital accent as he mimics F.A. Trinket, the maniacally upbeat woman who arrives once a year to read out the names at the reaping. I almost forgot! Happy Hunger Games. He plucks a few blackberries from the bushes around us. And may the odds... He tosses it in a berry in high around me. This page seems to be talking more about the capital, the woods, and I feel like what I noticed the most is how they seem to take such small rations of food for something so special, which indicates that they might be living in poverty or a society where they don't get that much to eat.
I agree. The capital seems to be a richer part of this society. I catch it in my mouth and break the delicate skin with my teeth. The sweet tartness explodes across my tongue. Be forever in your favor, I finish the equal verb. We have to joke about it because the alternative is to be scared out of your wits. Besides, the capital accent is so affected, almost anything sounds funny in it. I watch as Gale pulls out his knife and slices the bread. He could be my brother. Straight black hair, olive skin. We have the same gray eyes, but we're not related, at least not closely. Most of the families who work in the mines resemble one another this way. That's why my mother and Prim, with their light hair and blue eyes, always look out of place. They are. My mother's parents were part of a small merchant class that caters to officials, peacekeepers, and the occasional seam customer. They ran an apothecary shop in the nicer part of District 12. Since almost no one can afford doctors, apothecaries are our healers. My father got to know my mother because on his hunts he would sometimes collect medicinal herbs and sell them to her shop to be brewed into remedies. She must have really loved him to leave her home for the seam. I try to remember that when all I can see is the woman who sat by, blank and unreachable, while her children turned to skin and bones. I tried to forgive her for my father's sake, but to be honest, I'm not the forgiving type. Gale spreads the bread slices with soft goat cheese, carefully placing a basil leaf on each while I strip the bushes of their berries.
It seems that she is very close with Gale, and I also understood from this page that she doesn't seem to like her mother very much, and that this may be due to the fact that her father has died recently.
I agree. She says that she's not the forgiving type, which gives us a little bit of insight about her character.
We settle back in a nook in the rocks. From this place, we are invisible but have a clear view of the valley, which is teeming with summer life, greens to gather, roots to dig, fish iridescent in the sunlight. The day is glorious, with a blue sky and a soft breeze. The food's wonderful, with the cheese seeping into the warm bread and the berries bursting in our mouths. Everything would be perfect if this was really a holiday, if all the day off meant was roaming the mountains with Gale, hunting for tonight's supper. But instead, we have to be standing out in the square at 2 o'clock, waiting for the names to be called out. We could do it, you know, Gale says quietly. What? I ask. Leave the district, run off, live in the woods. You and I, we can make it, says Gale. I don't know how to respond. The idea is so preposterous. If we didn't have so many kids, he adds quickly. They're not our kids, of course, but they might as well be. Gale's 2 little brothers and a sister, Prim. And you may as well throw in our mothers too, because how would they live without us? Who would fill those mouths that are always asking for more? With both of us hunting daily, there are still nights when game has to be stocked for lard or shoelaces or wool, still nights when we go to bed with our stomachs growling. I never want to have kids, I say. I might, if I didn't live here, says Gale. But you do, I say, irritated. I noticed that this page primarily talks about it kind of gives you an imagery about the view, and it shows you how it's a very nice day, except for the fact that there is an event that is supposed to happen that day, which seems to be a foreshadowing event, and I believe that this novel might be related to something that is going to happen in the reaping.
I also noticed that Gale and Katniss are one of the 2 main providers for their families, as they mention that they have so many people to take care of. Forget it, he snaps back. The conversation feels all wrong. Leave? How could I leave Prim, who's the only person in the world I'm certain I love? And Gale is devoted to his family. We can't leave, so why bother talking about it? And even if we did, where all this stuff about having kids come from? There's never been anything romantic between Gale and me. When we met, I was a skinny 12-year-old, and although he was only 2 years older, he already looked like a man. It took a long time for us to even become friends, to stop haggling over every trade and begin helping each other out. Besides, if he wants kids, Gail won't have any trouble finding a wife. He's good looking, he's strong enough to handle the work in the mines, and he can hunt. You can tell by the way the girls whisper about him when he walks by in school that they want him. It makes me jealous, but not for the reason people would think. Good hunting partners are hard to find. What do you want to do? I ask. We can hunt, fish, or gather. Let's fish at the lake. We can leave our poles and gather in the woods. Get something nice for tonight, he says. Tonight, after the reaping, everyone is supposed to celebrate. And a lot of people do, out of relief that their children have been spared for another year. But at least 2 families will pull their shutters, lock their doors, and try to figure out how they will survive the painful weeks to come.
This page gives a bit more insight about the reaping, telling us how there seems to be 2 families, or apparently 2 children that might be taken from the families, and supposedly will have something happen to them. I also noticed that they seem to have a lot of hunting experience, and they provide for their family very much.
I agree. I also noticed that Katniss seems to have a certain view about Gale, in the sense that he is good looking and many girls admire him.
Now we are halfway through chapter 1 and we will end here. Thank you all for reading with us. I found that this experience was truly a great way to really understand what the author is trying to convey and what message they want to tell their audience. And I often don't read mindfully, and I notice that I don't really truly take in each word, each aspect, each figurative language word that the author uses. I don't take all of that in, but now after mindfully reading, I've noticed that it really allows you to truly understand what the author's reading, and it also enhances your reading skills.
I agree. This process allowed me to truly live in the moment and notice how I was feeling during reading this book. Reading mindfully made the process easier as it allowed me to understand each page individually and really understand what the author was trying to convey.
Overall, we both found this experience so fun and would definitely try it again.
This brings us to the end of our 11th video for stress relieving techniques.
Reading books is beneficial for not only your mental health or physical well-being, but it allows you to improve your intelligence, improve creativity, reduce stress, and so much more.
Make sure to watch our other videos and check out our Instagram, TikTok, and our website and other socials, which will be linked down below and in our bio.
We also have a daily affirmations podcast with episodes we upload each morning on uplifting affirmations to give you a boost to your day.
See you in our next video, and always remember, mental health is mental wealth.
Bye!